So Corsair have finally upgraded our favourite range of SFX PSUs. Now the Corsair SF850 I have here is also accompanied by the SF750 and the SF1000 range of SFX PSUs new for 2024. Obviously, as the name implies, this is an 850 watt version, there's a 750 and a 1 kilowatt version. So we're going to unbox this model today. We're going to compare it against the previous SF750 from a couple of years ago. We're also going to look at it against the SF850L, the longer version, so you can see the difference between the two. So let's get a start unboxing it. Now this is ATX3 compliance, so it does include the newer cables for the graphics card, which is very handy. Let's quickly have a look at the actual PSU itself. So here we go, the SF850. Now, one thing is you can see straight away it's absolutely tiny. It is the same size as the previous range, I believe. We're going to compare it in a second. But new for this year is we get the new tiny compact little cables, which are much smaller connectors going into the SFX itself. On the side, you get obviously the usual data on what's on each of the actual channels. And if we look to the bottom, we've got a nice grille with sort of the grey fan. Now, the thing I've always loved about these SFX PSUs over many of the other brands is the fact they're virtually silent in your ITX rig. And that's particularly important because with ITX PCs, they're usually sat on your desk. Now, let's have a look what else we get in the box. Now, I'm in the UK, so I get my normal UK plug, but you'll get your region. Some silicone to keep it nice and dry. Some Velcro straps for a bit of cable tidying. And then the braided cables themselves, and you do get a lot. Put them to one side, we'll take a look in a second. Now, another thing that Corsair always give you, which I like, is an SFX to ATX adapter. So if the PC you're putting this in, you want to put a small SFX in, but it comes with an ATX style case, this will convert it for you so you can mount it into the ATX mounting plate. Safety booklet, and this just feels like screws. Let's just quickly open it up and take a look. So we've got screws and we've got some zip ties, just again so you can tidy up your cables once you've got them in situ in the PC. Now, looking at the cables themselves, you can see these smaller connectors. So obviously there's your 24-pin ATX going onto your motherboard, but look at the size of these new connectors that go into the actual SFX itself. They are certainly much smaller. Now I'm going to get the SF750, this is the previous model. So straight away you can see that this is exactly the same sort of size as the previous model, but you'll notice that the fan housing is slightly different. You've obviously got a older fashioned looking fan grille over the fan, but the fans themselves do look pretty much the same. And you can see the larger connectors on the older model versus the new model. Now, when I put the cables up against, obviously they are both braided. They're both very soft, so there's no changes there. The only real difference is the connector going into the new PSU. Now, again, we get the 24-pin. We get a CPU 8-pin there. The standard PCIe for the older style graphics cards. Another 8-pin for the CPU, because some of the motherboards, the heavy mothers, do have the two 8-pins. There's another older PCIe for your graphics cards. And we get the 12 VHPWR connector for your NVIDIA graphics for the higher end of the 4000 series, and no doubt for the 5000 series when they launch probably early next year. We also get one more of the older style PCIe for a total of 3. Then we get an older fashioned Molex. I don't know if anyone uses these days, but the joy of it being modular is you only put in what you need, so that'll probably just end up sitting in your box. And then we get a couple of SATA cables, and again, I don't think a lot of people will use these nowadays. Most people use M.2s, but if you have a lot of storage, they are handy to have. So again, as I say, being modular, you'll only put in the cables that you need, and being much smaller, it will take up much less room on this actual PSU, so it will be quite a compact, tidy unit. Now, one thing I do want to compare it against, now they do an SF850L or an SFL range. That was also not long released. You can see the difference in size here between the two. The SFL being much longer. And another thing that is notable, the SF850L is much cheaper, and it has much cheaper feeling cables. They're just the standard sort of plastic coated as opposed to the softer braided cables. So if you can fit an SF850L in, again, it's a great PSU, but it certainly is a lot longer. So we'll go in obviously larger cases than the SF850, and you do get cheaper feeling cables. But other than that, they're both great PSUs. I've used plenty of SF750s, 850s in the past, and the Ls as well. They are great PSUs. So there we go, that's the SF850. As I mentioned, they do it in a 750, 850 and 1 kilowatt. Fantastic PSUs. And obviously, if you're building an ITX case, I thoroughly recommend these. I've been using Corsair PSUs for years, never had one fail me yet, unlike some of the other brands. Now, I will put a link down below to these products if you want to pick one up. If you've got any questions, again, pop in the description, I will get back to you. And lastly, thanks for watching.